Would you like to call roll?
Councilmember Brightingham.
Here.
Councilmember O'Neill.
Here.
Councilmember Tu-Ha Nguyen.
Here.
Councilmember Bowie.
Yeah.
Councilmember Kim Nguyen.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Klopfenstein.
Here.
And Mayor Jones.
Here. Can I ask Maria Stipe to lead us in the invocation, and then Councilmember John O'Neill to do the pledge?
Thank you, Mayor. If everybody could please stand and prepare yourselves according to your faith. Dear Heavenly Father, as we gather here this evening to consider the issues of our community, we ask for your presence in our proceedings. May your hand guide our work and the decisions that are made here tonight for the benefit of all. Amen.
Please join me in saluting the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
And to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
All right, that takes us on to presentations. We do have two different ones. First is 1A, which is a community spotlight in recognition of Police Sergeant Royce Wimmer and Officer Nick Almeida for going above and beyond the call of duty during the police department's SARA project. Scott.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, members of council, we asked for this presentation to be put on the agenda, and I'm going to ask Chief DeRay to come up and introduce the program. This was a tremendous effort where the chief briefed all of the department directors on some tremendous police work they did, particularly in the area of Beach Boulevard and Garden Grove Boulevard, where they really did a lot of great work in conjunction with code enforcement and other efforts. And I thought the council members and the public would be really interested to hear about this. And then in addition, I've asked the chief to just give a couple comments about some of the additional stuff that their police department is doing. It's been a particularly tough week for the department over the past week. They've been doing a lot of tremendous work, making some great arrests. And so I wanted him to just make a couple comments about that as well. So thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and members of City Council. Tonight it is my privilege to spotlight two Garden Grove police officers for going above and beyond the call of duty during a 6-month scanning, analysis, response, and assessment project, also known as the SARA project. Would Sergeant Royce Wimmer and Master Officer Nick Almeida please come forward? Last year, Sergeant Wimmer and Master Officer Almeida attended a homeless liaison officer course that educates police officers about the scope of the homeless problem at the federal, state, county, and municipal levels, and the effectiveness of combining homeless outreach with enforcement to assist them. In September, they began a 6-month SARA project in the area of Beach and Garden Grove Boulevard, where an increase in prostitution, homelessness, and drug and assault offenses caused the area to have the highest rate of calls throughout the city. After analyzing prior SARA projects, Sergeant Wimmer and Master Officer Almeida discovered two key elements which were missing: community and business collaboration in community policing through an environmental design. Master Officer Almeida contacted Chevron Extra Mile Garden Grove, which was a hub of criminal activity. He worked with Chevron to improve the safety and security for staff and customers. Chevron installed 100-foot of wrought iron fence, removed a bicycle rack, placed a lock on the bathroom door, and installed blue lights in the bathroom to deter drug use. Also, 2 bus benches where criminals would congregate and overtly use drugs in plain sight of the public were removed. After completing environmental design changes, they organized 2 successful warrant inspections at the Garden Grove Inn and Hospitality Inn for criminal and drug activities. Master Officer Almeida coordinated with the city attorney, code enforcement, animal control services, and the county's child protective services to formulate a plan to not only enforce criminal and civil laws, but to provide services to those in need. During the 2 warrant inspections, over 35 rooms were red tagged. Several residents were ordered out for violating miscellaneous municipal codes, and resources were provided. Master Officer Almeida also arranged and organized patrol officers and officers from specialty units for multiple enforcement and outreach operations. Over 150 arrests were made, and 30 homeless hygiene kits were handed out to the public. The police officers led by Sergeant Wimmer and Master Officer Almeida not only arrested criminals, but assisted those in need for employment and for homeless outreach information. Social media was utilized to notify and involve the community. Suggestions and tips posted by community members were used as part of the investigation. The use of social media was a first by the Garden Grove Police Department during a SARA project, and it proved to be very well received by the public. During a recent community event, a resident approached Master Officer Almeida and informed him that Beach and Garden Grove Boulevard was turning into Skid Row, but after seeing the efforts made by the Garden Grove Police Department, feels comfortable walking with her children again. Several other community members posted comments in support of the project. As a result of the efforts made by Sergeant Wimmer and Master Officer Almeida, the police department experienced a 58% decrease in calls for service in the area. At this time, the mayor and city council would like to present Sergeant Wimmer and Master Officer Almeida with certificates of recognition for their dedication and their efforts to keep Garden Grove safe. And the Garden Grove Police Department would like to present Sergeant Wimmer and Master Officer Almeida with the Garden Grove Police Department's Medal of Merit. Thank you and congratulations.
Yeah, let's do a few pictures and then.
I was gonna split up.
Darn it. I thought I could get out of this one.
Councilman Chapman. Right here first?
3, 2, 1.
Okay.
Right here? 1, 2, 3. And one more. 1, 2, 3.
Just one closing thought on that one. I want to also thank our chief building official, David Dent, for his efforts climbing up and down on buildings, and he probably deserves an honorary badge.
Absolutely, we'll make sure we get him one.
Cool.
So after the week of chaos that our community had endured, I think it's important to address what our police department has been doing to bring back the sense of safety and security to our community. I made a determination to focus on zero tolerance approach to crime within our community and received the support from the city manager that funds would be appropriated to support this task. I tasked Captain Alfara with creating a detail of 1 supervisor and 8 officers to focus on criminal behavior within our community last weekend. These officers were addition to the regular scheduled patrol officers handling calls for service. This detail of 1 supervisor and 8 police officers worked 10 hours and arrested 31 subjects for criminal behavior, issued 12 citations, and impounded 4 vehicles. We have future plans for additional details, but we'll examine our crime data in scheduling future programs. Our community should see an increase in police officers throughout our city. I would also like to share our current crime statistics from January 1st to June 30th. So within this time frame, our murders were at 0 increase. They were even year to date. Our forcible rape was down 4%. Our robbery was down 4%. Aggravated assault was down 4%. And simple assault was down 9%. So in looking at the statistics, our violent crime at that time for the first half of the year was down 7%. Our property crime in regards to burglary was down 9%. Our theft was down 8%. And totals for our property crime was down 8% for the year. So it gives us a handle on kind of where we were for the first 6 months. And I will continue to give you updates on our crime statistics as they go on. I can tell you that the men and women of the police department work very hard to keep this community safe. They will continue to work hard to keep this community safe, and we will do everything we can to make sure that our community feels that sense of safety and security. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you, gentlemen. That takes us on to item 1B, which is Orange County Fire Authority transition update, as presented by Ron Roberts, Division Chief.
And Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council, and to the public, I'll just make a note. I know all of you know Chief Roberts, but Chief Roberts will be the new Division Chief working for the City of Garden Grove, and he'll be, his office will be located here across the street from, well, just right nearby, across the street from City Hall. So we just asked him to come up, give us a quick little 5-minute presentation, a little overview of some things, and then of course we're getting ready for the transition to occur with the Orange County Fire Authority on Friday. So, Chief.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, City Council, City staff, Mr. Stiles, and residents of Garden Grove. As Mr. Stiles said, my name is Ron Roberts. I will be your Division 1 Fire Chief, located here at Fire Station 1. Will be our Fire Station 81 come Friday morning. I've got a very short presentation. I promise I'll be brief. I know you have a full agenda. I currently serve the cities of Los Alamitos, Seal Beach, and Westminster. Come Friday morning, I will be serving proudly the citizens of Garden Grove. Get my clicker here. Whoops. Sorry about that. So the first slide I wanted to include to show the residents and make sure that they're aware. You have 7 fire stations located in the city of Garden Grove. You will have 7 fire stations with the Orange County Fire Authority. You will be known as Battalion 11. We like to keep our span of control in the fire service at about 5 to 7 of any object. And so you will be known as Battalion 11, working for Division 1. This next slide, your 7 fire stations now will become part of a 79-station regional fire protection agency. As you can see, you have filled in and helped us connect several of our cities, and we're very appreciative of that. You also become part of this regional fire protection that we come with so many services and specialties that I think you'll be very proud with your choice to come with the Orange County Fire Authority. So on Friday morning, this is what your fire and EMS protection will look like. You will have 5 ALS paramedic engine companies. You will have 2 paramedic ALS truck companies, and of course a battalion chief who will be on duty 24/7. Uh-oh. A little technical difficulty there. I would like to, I wanted to let you know at this point that we will be bringing 76 of your employees across to the Orange County Fire Authority. They have been great to work with. Also your staff, I want to commend your professional staff. They integrated with our team. They were matched with an authority person, and just was amazing to work with them, very professional, very timely, and a great help to getting this project done. As Mr. Stiles said, we will be locating our Division 1 office at Fire Station 81 and your current Fire Station 1. And we're going to have a pretty robust staff. One of the areas that I'm excited about, quite honestly, and I believe that it also is for the community, is we were going to have a full-time community educator assigned to our office. This person will do station tours, school visits, but could coordinate much more for the business community, disaster preparedness, disaster recovery, speaking to community groups. There's a wide gamut that they will be providing. We also are going to be coming with a 4-person community risk reduction office or fire prevention. So we'll have a supervisor and 3 field inspectors that will work for him, as well as an admin assistant. Last but not least, all of your firefighters are EMTs or paramedics, and we have to do continuing education by law. And so we have in-house nurse educators that will provide training on a monthly basis to your firefighters. Also, these nurse educators can provide training to the community as well. We've had a very successful Stop the Bleed program in the city of Westminster next door. So I look forward to partnering up with the school districts as well as our staff will as well. This next slide, I won't go through all the bullets, but I just wanted to highlight just a couple here. Dispatching, our command center looks forward to being your secondary PSAP. Your police department is the primary. We will be your secondary, and we will be your dispatch center. Our fleet management system, we have a 20-plus bay garage at our headquarters facility. So we look forward to servicing and taking care of the city's needs there. And then property management. We have our own in-house property managers that will take care of the station buildings and make sure that we keep those up and keep them operational. In conclusion, I'd like to again commend city staff for working with us the way they did. It was a great experience. We're not quite done yet, but they have been fantastic to work with. I want to thank the Garden Grove firefighters. They have protected the citizens and cared for the citizens for 93 years. That's an admirable achievement, and it's going to be a pleasure to work with them. I have friends who were past and present on the Garden Grove Fire Department, so I wanted to say thank you to them. And in conclusion, we look forward to proudly serving you into the future. And that concludes my presentation. Be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Chief. Before you step down, I'd actually like to pull a consent item forward, and this is item 3A. I'd like to take that out of order. This is adoption of a proclamation recognizing August 16th, 2019 as the transition of the Garden Grove Fire Department to the Orange County Fire Authority, and we do have something I would like to present. So if I could also call up our Garden Grove Acting Chief, TJ McGovern, is he out there? And OCFA Fire Chief Brian Fennessy to also come forward. Proclamation, maybe we can take a few photos. And then
Yeah, see this. That's pretty cool. That's outstanding.
yeah, it is pretty cool.
That's neat.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
Can I say a couple? Absolutely.
Yeah, can we take some photos?
Yes.
Can we take some
Yes.
pictures first?
Yes. Hello. I've always wanted. I know. However, I might wear it.
All right, 3, 2, 1. 3, 2, 1. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, make a motion to pass that.
Yeah, before you speak.
Okay, let me stand over here.
My bad. I was reminded.
It's okay.
I'd like to move that item. John,
I'll second it.
Call the vote. Thanks, John.
You're all thinking it, man.
Motion receives, 7 yes votes.
All righty, all yours.
Thank you very much. You know, I want to start off, Honorable Mayor, City Council, with a whole lot of thank yous, right? I mean, certainly, you know, you're right at the top of the thank you list. I had the, I'll call it a pleasure. I had a pleasure of being here on several nights and watching the, no, it was okay. I mean, there was some really, I love the candid conversation. I love the different perspectives. No one could ever say that you walked into this without turning over every rock, without asking every question. I go back to the study session that we had where Stu Gary walked us all through. You're probably the most knowledgeable city council of any I know about response times. And so this certainly was not a decision you took lightly, obviously. And as mentioned earlier, 93-year history, that's a proud history. This fire department has a long and distinguished and proud history, and a very well-known history. I want to thank City Manager Scott Stiles. I've gotten to not only enjoy a professional relationship, but we have a friendship now through all of this, and his staff, as we sat at the table and went through some of the items. It's just been a great experience in terms of building relationships with staff and with you all. Chief McGovern, class act, am I right? I mean, the guy is amazing. He took over at a time that was very difficult, not only because of, you know, the ongoing, you know, debate or discussion about, but because of Chief Schultz. And he did it with class and honor, and I have so much respect for him and all your department. You know, Chief Roberts talked a lot about the service delivery, and you're going to get excellent service. You're going to get regionals. It's going to be unbelievable. But I want to talk a little bit about what you're getting in terms of maybe something that's a little less tangible, and that's the family aspect, right? You always hear, or maybe you do or you don't, hear about the fire family. And Garden Grove had a great, close-knit fire family. They're getting a big family now. It's like marrying into, you know, a giant, and you're getting that. You're getting us as your family, too. I had the honor Sunday, yesterday, and today of coming out to the fire station, your Station 1, and we handed out badges. And when the event was first mentioned by Colleen Windsor, my director of communications, it was kind of a concept she had, and I'm like, wow, God, I wonder how important that's going to be to the firefighters. Because we've sworn them in, they've gotten their uniforms, they've gotten their training, handing them another badge, is that really going to be a big deal? It was a big deal. I underestimated it, and I got to meet and shake hands with every one of your firefighters. All of them were immensely professional, polite. We are so lucky. Thank you. Thank you for, you know, trusting us with your firefighters. We're going to take good care of them. A lot of them you're going to see right here. You're going to have, like I say, a bigger family. And lastly, I think what I really want to do is reflect, you know, my experience with, you know, with your Fire Chief Tom Schultz. As I've been here in Orange County now I've been the chief here almost a year and a half. I was the fire chief for the city of San Diego, and Tom was one of the first people that reached out to me. Tom was the county fire chief president. And as you can imagine, you know, you're going into some other county, some other organization. Tom made me feel so welcome. You know, like we'd been friends or family for years. And I get kind of chill saying this, but I'll never forget what he told me just, you know, like the days before he passed. And he kind of saw this coming, you know, this transition. He asked me to, one thing he says, man, you just got to promise me you're going to take care of my guys. I get chills saying it. I mean, it was, and I never talked to him again after that. And just what a class act. I mean, throughout this whole thing, when he sat here and was always respectful, right, to us, always respectful to you, the council, and honest, class act. So I'll close with that and just thank you again for trusting us with your firefighters. We're going to take good care of them. As I know City Manager Stiles says, if you ever need anything, you're going to be in good hands with Chief Roberts, but I'm still your fire chief, so if you need me to come here and talk to you about something, just let me know, and we'll let Chief or City Manager Stiles know, and he'll let us know. Thank you very much. Thank you for the honor.
Chief Fennessy, before you sit down, can you come back up? I have something I'd like to present to you and your staff. So in this last 4 months during transition, we did a lot of training over at OCFA headquarters. And in their training facility, beautiful facility, they have photos of all the departments that have transitioned in the past. So on behalf of the Garden Grove Fire Department, we are also going to be offering you our department photo. So let me grab that for you. So, once again, on behalf of the Garden Grove Fire Department, this photo is for you guys, and we would hope that it can go in the training facility also. That's what's cool. And one more thing, Chief Roberts is going to come back up for one more thing he has there.
I beg your pardon, that when your bosses are watching you do a speech, I got a little jittered there. I just wanted to invite the council on August 22nd. We will be swearing in Mr. O'Neill to our board of directors at 6 p.m. We would love if you could all attend and see that, as well as we will be unveiling the city seal that will go up on our wall of honor at our headquarters. Thank you.
Normally, we would bring this up under matter of from the council, but because the chief OCFA chief is here, and I don't want to wait until the end of the council meeting, and you might not be longer be here. Very excited about today. It's history in the makings. We have traveled a very long road, 2 years in the makings, for this day to come on August 16, where we formally transitioned to OCFA. When I heard Division Chief Robert talk about, put up the map of the fire station of the Garden Grove division and the other division in OCFA family, I was very happy to see that map. And decision is always very difficult, and sometimes we have to have the courage to make the decision, not 100% guarantee that it will be 100% successful. There's always risk when you run a big operation. But I believe we have made the right decisions, and many of the OCFA families, the various cities throughout Orange County, have been with the OCFA for a long times. And I'm sure Garden Grove will be looking at a very successful in the big family of OCFA firefighters. And I look forward to working with you and improving the firefighting and medical services for our residents. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we'll now move on to oral communications. We do have some cards. We'll start with Lori Merrick from OC Humane Society.
I typed up some stuff, so I'm probably going to read a lot of it because I'm not fabulous at public speaking. So I'm here to speak about the Orange County Humane Society. It's who we contract with for animal services in Garden Grove. And you don't have to answer this, but my first question would be, how many of you guys up there are pet owners or animal owners right now? Majority, okay. So from one crazy dog person to another crazy bunch of people who own pets, I'm going to speak about the conditions there, and I'm going to hope that you guys don't currently know about what goes on there and the conditions there, and that maybe we can open your eyes and we can start doing something about the Humane Society. So there's 3 different things: the animal treatment, the administration of the shelter, and their inability to work with rescues for the animals there. The first thing is the treatment there. If you've ever been there, and I don't know if any of you guys have actually taken a tour of there, you notice that the kennels are about 3 by 8. They don't have a play yard. There's no exercise. They rely on volunteers to show up and walk the animals. If they don't have anybody there to walk the animals, the dogs just sit there in their kennels. The dogs have no beds, which is really surprising, because if you look over in one of their storage areas, you see that the Huntington Beach community or Garden Grove has a huge stack of beds that are donated, along with food, toys, collars, leashes, etc. But they don't put any of these in the kennels. So all the dogs sleep on the concrete floor. If they're old, which a lot of the time the old pets get out, they just sit there on the concrete floor with their joints rotting. The fences are in ill repair, so the kennels that have the gates that open, the chain link fence unravels as the dogs try to not get out of them, and they don't often fix them, so it creates injuries to the dogs. They can't be bothered with taking on and off dog harnesses. So if you picture yourself in a mountain climbing harness, and then you're told that you're going to sleep in that harness all night, that's what the dogs have to stay in all day, because they just can't be bothered to take this on and off. Then we move to the administration of it. Their inability to photograph pets. I don't know if any of you guys are on some of the community websites where they post the lost and found pets, but I know Victoria Hatfield takes some of those pictures and sort of spreads them out, tries to network them on her own. A lot of times you can't even tell it's a dog. So a lot of the shelters will have an area that they section off to take pictures of these dogs so they can be networked out. If people see them, they can share them out. Facebook, Paw Boost, all these community networking. You can't tell, and a lot of these dogs, I have a sample here. So this is what you get. It's a little placeholder picture on their website. And you might say, well, they didn't have time to take the picture of the dog. This particular dog was there on a 5-day stray hold. It expired on July 26th, and as of August 10th, there's still no picture. In the description of this dog, this lovely little boy right here, he's listed as a brown and white dog. Not a lot of white on that dog. So if you only have this description to go find your dog, you're not apt to go and find this dog there. Let's see, that's Luke, by the way. I'm networking, I'm trying to get him adopted. Let's see, they have signs all over that say no photography and video taking, but that's how dogs get networked. That's how they get adopted. Somebody sees a dog, they take a picture of it, and they start networking it out on social media, but they prohibit that. So by taking these pictures, I was in violation, and if they saw me with my cell phone, I would have been kicked out. And which, by the way, they can do, because it's private property, and they can refuse service to me and anybody else that goes there that they don't want in. And they have done that before. Another dog is, and this goes into failure to work with rescues, there's another dog there. Her name is Lola. She's very cute. She's been there a year. So picture yourself on a concrete floor, no socialization because they have no play yard, and being there for 365 days. When I talked to them about this dog, they said they might consider a rescue after this poor dog has been there for a year. They could have gotten this dog rescued a long time ago if they had tried. So at best you can say the shelters run poorly, but at worst you can say that they're negligent. So as with any city employee, which they essentially are, you need to put them on notice. You need to let them know that this is unacceptable. And if they don't get things and make things right, you need to fire them. There's not a citizen in Garden Grove that wouldn't applaud you for giving them their 180-day notice, canceling their services, and going with the one in Irvine.
You need to wrap it up. Thank you.
Okay. Let me just add, we do have pictures against their signs. So if anybody cares about this, if you truly are a crazy dog person like me, let me know and we can email them to you so you can have backup and material evidence of just how bad it is there. Thank you.
Thank you. Markel Pineda?
Hi. Thank you, council members. Thank you, Mayor. I don't want to necessarily repeat a lot of what Lori just spoke about. I don't consider myself necessarily a crazy dog person, but I am an animal advocate. I will tell you, I went to the Orange County Humane Society a year ago to look for a lost dog. I was denied entry. And at the time, I didn't know my rights. I went back last week, kind of went through with a, knowing my rights like I'm gonna go through. I actually photographed cockroaches, dogs without water, of course, broken fences. There's a problem. I think it's time to open a dialogue to maybe talk about going back to Orange County Animal Care Center. This shelter, 1.5-star Yelp review, I'm from Huntington Beach. I'm embarrassed to say this shelter's in my city. I think of Huntington Beach as forward-thinking. I think of Garden Grove as a forward-thinking city, and it's an embarrassment. They basically are a private ran shelter that they march to the beat of their own drummer. I'm a founder of a rescue, a 501c3 rescue. I've offered to take animals off their hands, and I have video recording of them telling me they don't need to work with rescues. Well, if that's the case, why did they kill 9 dogs in the month of July? They euthanized 9 dogs. Before any shelter kills 9 animals, they would have reached out via email blast to rescue partners saying, hey, we've got a dog that might be aggressive and might, whatever the case may be, a sick dog, a parvo dog. Would you like to step up and take this dog? They didn't do that. They won't do that. They're too proud. They are putting Garden Grove at risk of a lawsuit because they're violating Hayden Act. Okay? You guys, I'm just asking to open the dialogue. Let's talk about this. There's people all over social media that have been denied being able to walk through those doors to look for a lost animal. And I know this might not be the top priority, but it's important to me. It's important to a lot of people, So I just want to get the dialogue started, okay? And if you'd like, I can send the pictures of no water in the middle of the summer, cockroaches on the ground. These pictures were taken last week. And I don't know when they probably won't let me back through the doors now, but, so again, I can email those to you as well, whoever would like to see them. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Leland Sisk.
Mr. Mayor, council members, city staff, here we go again, from gossip to gospel, part 2. If you remember a few months ago, I addressed the city council. I told you that on the city's website where you have your maps, I happened to be looking at it last December, and I had a building code violation for something I had a permit in my hand for. So my point was, if somebody had did some, before they posted that on the city's website as a violation, had they just called the building services, they could have gotten my permit number. Well, it's happened again. Last Thursday, just happened to be looking at the city's website. Now I've got a code violation for overgrown vegetation. So I called Ms. Rita Kramer. She handles my area. She answered the phone, and I asked her, was I really on double secret probation? She laughed and looked it up. Somebody has reported to the city that I have overgrown vegetation. What? I got a new weed whacker, and I'm not afraid to use it. There's nothing overhanging anywhere, not front, not sides. My lime tree overhangs at the back, but that's the way my neighbor wants it because he gets free limes. So that's not a problem. So she asked that I send her a photo of the front of each side of my yard, and as of today, I don't have a letter. I don't suppose I really am in violation. But here's another instance where the city has an opportunity to fix something that is obviously broken. Before this gets posted for all the public to see that Leland Sisk violates building codes and violates code enforcement, check it. It wasn't true in the first instance. It's not true in this instance. So just remember, from gossip to gospel via your website. Thank you.
Nicholas Dibbs.
Mayor Jones, members of the council, citizens of Garden Grove, my name is Nicholas Dibbs. First off, impromptu, I want to back up what they said about the shelter. We have to have accountability and oversight, and whatever you can do, have a study session or something or an informal session where people can come and talk about the animal shelter issues. Okay, I'm here on an important subject regarding the suicide prevention and mental health issue. Back in April, this council, Mayor Jones and the council members on April the 9th signed this proclamation declaring Child Abuse Prevention Month in Garden Grove in April 2019. Of course, child abuse prevention should not just be for the month of April, but for all year, obviously. So I want to bring that to your attention, remind you that this is what you passed. And yesterday I had the opportunity to go to a special meeting of the Orange County Commission to End Homelessness. And City Manager Stiles serves on that commission as well as others. And on item 9 on the agenda, they had a presentation regarding Be Well Orange County. The whole idea is to have an integrated approach between the cities, the county, and the mental health providers. And due to the suicide of a teenager back earlier this year, Board Chair Lisa Bartlett, as well as the board members, Orange County Board of Supervisor members, set aside over $600,000 to get this Be Well Orange County program going. Now, I have a list here of who are the partners, and the city of Garden Grove is not on it. So my main focus in being here tonight is to ask that you please put this on the agenda for the next meeting my understanding is that I might be wrong, but I think City Manager Stiles can verify that it's free. It's not going to cost the city anything to join and be part of the Be Well Orange County program and initiative. They've already broken ground on their headquarter facility. So I have for each of you a handout on the Be Well program, and you'll see item 9 on the agenda from the commission's meeting yesterday. I would also suggest that you invite Mr. Stiles' colleague who sits on the commission to come and do the presentation, which he did yesterday as well, and invite him to come and do a presentation regarding the Be Well program. And his name is Mr. Marshall Moncrief, and he's one of the executives on the Be Well Orange County program, and have him come and do a presentation if you'd like. If not, at least put it on the agenda and ask that the city of Garden Grove be part of this special program. Because I don't need to remind you that one suicide is one suicide too many. That we need to work not in silos. That's the whole point of this, is that instead of having silos, that we all work together. The school district, the cities, and the school districts, and the county, and the sheriffs, and the police agencies, all working together in this integrated approach called Be Well Orange County. So please do that. That would be very helpful. Now, with regard, and part of the problem is the students and the youngsters are spending too much time on the internet, too much social media, too much screen time, which is causing, as studies are showing, harm to the children. So I have here one booklet, and I understand Mr. Stiles has several of these upstairs somewhere in the building, maybe 200 of them, so I didn't feel like passing them out since you already have them. But here's one for the record, and it's put out by the Federal Trade Commission on ways to help parents and youngsters. It's a free pamphlet, and so you have it in the building here somewhere, and if the city manager could get it to you, that would be great. I'll also provide a copy of the email that I sent the handout here, plus the email I sent to all of you way back in, earlier this month, back on, or earlier on June the 19th, not only to each of you, but to the school district. So you have this for the public record, if you'll put that in with the brochure. Thank you for listening.
Thanks, Nick. Okay, that concludes oral communications. I do just want to note that prior to our meeting tonight, we did have a couple closed session items that were agendized, and there is no reportable action. From that, we're going to recess to successor agency. Madam Clerk, would you like to call roll?
Member Brightigam.
Here.
Member O'Neill.
Here.
Member Tuha Win. Here. Member Klopfenstein.
Here.
Member Kim Win.
Here.
Vice Chair Bowie.
Yeah.
And Chair Jones.
Here, we already did oral communications simultaneously with City Council. We have 2 consent items, receive and file the minutes, and also receive and file the warrants. Do I have a motion?
Second.
Call to vote.
I'm sorry, who was the first?
George, Steph.
Steph. Thank you.
Hold on. I had to use my mouse. Can't touch.
Motion received, 7 yes votes.
Any matters from agency members? Seeing none, we will adjourn successor agency, and before we reconvene, council, we're going to take a quick break to celebrate Councilmember Tuha Win's birthday. We actually have cake in the other room, so we'll take a very short break for just a moment, and then we'll reconvene.
Come get some cake.
An excuse for cake. Let's go.
Already acted on 3A, so it's recommended that 3B through 3J be acted on simultaneously unless anybody would like to pull.
Move the balance.
Call the vote.
Quick.
Setting the tone for the rest of the night. You got that right.
Motion received, 7 yes votes.
Takes us on to public hearings. We have 2 different items, so 4A.
This evening, we do have, for items 4A, an approval of the 2019 Drinking Water Public Health Goal Report. And Mr. Murray is here to provide the staff report.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, members of the council. I'm here tonight with Sel Pasillas, who's your water quality manager. Talk about this issue. The Safe Drinking Water Act of 1974 protects the public by ensuring that water agencies provide clean, safe drinking water. One of the provisions of the act calls for water agencies to communicate the levels of harmful contaminants in their water. The city does this annually, and the results are published in a water quality report, which is available on the city's website. Additionally, the state requires a separate report to discuss water contaminants that exceed the water quality's goals that are set by the state. This is the Drinking Water Public Health Goal Report, and that's what is before council tonight. The report is designed to alert water agencies to possible problems developing within their water system. Our report does identify the presence of some harmful contaminants, but their levels are very low. Garden Grove water is in full compliance with all standards. The harmful contaminants include arsenic and uranium, which are naturally occurring. The other contaminants, they are byproducts of the disinfection process. It is important for these contaminants to be identified and monitored, as an increase in any of them may trigger the need for the city to treat them to remove them from the water. It should be noticed the cost to treat these contaminants is very expensive, which is why we just don't do it right now. By law, the Drinking Water Public Health Goal Report must be adopted by the City Council, and to adopt the plan, Council must first conduct a public hearing and then approve the report as submitted. This concludes staff's report, and staff is available to answer any of your questions.
Questions? Okay, seeing none, this is a public hearing, so we'll open the public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak on 4A? Come on up.
Mayor Jones, members of the council, my name is Nicholas Dibbs. I just would like to ask Bill and the staff on the, Bill, what you're referring to, or I should say, Mr. Murray, what you're referring to is the annual water quality report?
This report is the goal report. It's for the contaminant. It's a public health goal report, which is different than the water quality report.
Okay, so the goal report, is it every year? How often does it get normally done?
That report is every 3 years.
Oh, okay. And is this goal report an improvement on the one from, does it have an improvement over the one from 3 years ago as far as are we making progress? Or are things getting better as far as water quality? Are they staying the same, or are they getting a little worse?
It looks like I think there's a couple more constituents in the prior 3 years, but that's only because laboratory techniques are getting better to detect lower levels. It's not necessarily if the water quality is getting worse, it's just technology is getting that much better at detecting the smallest, tiniest bits.
Okay, so that's the maximum contaminant level. The detection is becoming more precise with the new technologies and new tests and so on.
Sure, yeah.
And let me just ask you on we have the combination of groundwater versus imported water. Is this goal report only for the groundwater, or is it also for the imported water?
It's strictly groundwater, but being that we import water, it also does tend to influence our well water. So it's sort of takes everything, but mainly it is groundwater is the main focus.
Okay, and for my own benefit and the citizens of Garden Grove, approximately how much groundwater versus the percentage of groundwater versus imported water from Metropolitan Water District or Orange County Municipal Water District of Orange County?
We just concluded 77%. We're entering the new fiscal year at 76% groundwater.
Okay. And the basin, I understand, is because of the rains have increased the amount that we have now in the groundwater basin. So thank you very much for answering these questions. I'm glad we're up to 77%, which I think is more than where it's been in the past, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, it does fluctuate. We are definitely on a higher end.
Yeah, okay. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay, we will now close the public hearing. Any questions, comments, or a motion?
Second.
Call the vote.
Motion received, 7 yes votes.
Thanks, Bill. Thanks. Takes us on to item 4B.
For item 4B, this evening we have an introduction and first reading of an ordinance approving an amendment to Plan Unit Development Number PUD-104-81/86, revised in 90, to facilitate the redevelopment of the Euclid Retail Center located at 14231 to 14291 Euclid Street, Garden Grove, entitled An Ordinance of the City Council of the City of Garden Grove approving Plan Unit Development Number PUD-104-81/86/90, revised 2019, amending the general use and development standards for Plan Unit Development Number PUD-104-81/86, revision 90, to reduce the required minimum parking area landscape setback for Area 3B. And Mr. Preet Kaskla is here to provide the staff report.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. The applicant is requesting approval of a text amendment to the development guidelines of Planned Unit Development Number PUD-104-81/86, revised 90. The amendment is to reduce the required minimum parking landscape setback. This will facilitate the redevelopment and rehabilitation of a 4.396 acre site comprised of one parcel and currently improved with a 47,922 square foot shopping center known as the Euclid Retail Center. The subject property is located on the west side of Euclid Street between Emperor Quang Trung and Forbes Avenue. Euclid Street is on the bottom of your screen here, Emperor Quang Trung to your left, and Forbes Avenue on your right. The property has a general plan land use designation of industrial commercial mixed use and is currently zoned planned unit development number PUD-104-81/86 revised 90. The applicant proposes an amendment to the PUD that will reduce the required 20-foot parking landscape area along Euclid Street to a minimum of 7 feet. This will only apply to the Euclid Retail Center. This reduction to the landscape setback will facilitate an expansion of the parking area that will allow for the construction of a new commercial building and rehabilitation of the overall site. As proposed by the applicant, the parking landscape setback will be 9 feet and 1 3/4 inches along the southern half of the site along Euclid Street. That is this part here on the bottom left of your screen. And on the northern half, it's proposed to be 7 feet. That's here on the bottom right. The proposed redevelopment of the commercial center is regulated by the standards and requirements of PUD-104-81/86 revised 90. The PUD allows for new construction and rehabilitation of the site without a land use entitlement, provided that the project complies with the development guidelines of the PUD. Upon approval of the PUD amendment to reduce the parking landscape setback along Euclid Street, the proposed project by the property owner will be compliant with the PUD. The property owner proposes to redevelop the Euclid Retail Center by constructing a 2-story, 7,250 square foot commercial retail and office building shown here. In addition, they propose to reconfigure the parking area, adding 65 new parking spaces and rehabilitating the landscaping. The applicant proposes retail and office uses within the new building, which are compatible with the commercial uses allowed in the PUD. The project and PUD amendment are consistent with the goals and policies of the general plan that encourage the revitalization of aging, underused, or deteriorated commercial centers, a mix of retail shops and services to better meet the needs of the area's present and potential clientele, and enhance parking areas, landscaping, and improve lighting. On June 20th, 2019, the Planning Commission held a public hearing to consider planned unit development number PUD-104-81/86/90 revised 2019. At the meeting, the Planning Commission voted 5-0 with 2 commissioners absent to adopt resolution number 5956-19 recommending approval of PUD-104-81/86/90 revised 2019 to City Council. Therefore, it is recommended that the City Council conduct a public hearing and introduce and conduct the first reading of the ordinance approving an amendment to planned unit development number PUD-104-81/86/90 revised 2019. This concludes staff's report, and we're available to answer any questions.
Thanks. Any questions, comments? Kim?
Just some clarification, because with the imaging that's provided in the report, it's unclear. Well, I looked it up, so I know where it is, but I just want to state it for the record for the public. We're talking about, so when you're coming down Euclid and then you come across Emperor Quang Trung Street, that's the part that's going to be re-landscaped so that there could be more parking spaces, but the actual building that will be constructed is going to be further down to your right, where the optometry, it's like directly right in front of Boiling Crab. It's that structure that's already existing there.
It's currently a vacant lot. If you look at the existing site plan here, I can point it out. So where the building is going is right here on the corner of Emperor Quang Trung and Euclid Street on the bottom left of your screen there. It's currently unimproved with just a vacant pad. There's no building, nothing's going to be demolished to build that new building.
Got it. And then, so my second question is, for the parking, is the parking going to be renovated or just additional spots made available?
It'll be renovated and there will be new parking. If you look at the proposed site plan, they've kind of reconfigured it so it flows a little bit better. And that's gone to the city engineer and everybody's reviewed it and they're okay with the new configuration as well as the additional 65 spaces.
Okay, that's my only question.
Mayor?
Please, George.
A couple of questions. The current setback on Euclid, what's the distance on it right now?
The current setback is 20 feet.
So you got a 20-foot setback going to a 9, right?
That's correct.
And that's the grassy area along Euclid for the most part.
That's correct.
Now, currently, the parking in that is just atrocious. If you try to get in there with a full-size vehicle, you're going to take 2 spots. I see these small parking in the diagram there with the letter C in them all. Are those the little small compact spaces, or?
That's correct. Those are the compact spaces. I believe they have, in the proposed parking, they have 37 compact spaces, 37% are compact spaces.
But the other ones that don't have a C are actually full-size?
Yes, those are
legit
full-size,
parking.
meaning 9 feet by 19 feet.
And with the new configuration, it meets the parking standards, including the new.
So these would meet the parking standards for the planned unit development.
Parked, underparked, is there, by how much?
By adding the new parking spaces, they will have 316 parking spaces, which is a 30% increase over what is required and a 20% increase of what's already there.
But in order to do that, we got to give up the setback.
That's correct.
Okay. I generally don't like doing that because but I get that it's kind of necessary in this configuration in order to get that building in there and everything, so. But thank you, good report.
Any other questions of staff? Otherwise, we have a public hearing. So I'll go ahead and open the public hearing. Nick Dibbs, come on up.
Mayor Jones, members of the council, citizens of Garden Grove, my name's Nicholas Dibbs, longtime resident of Garden Grove, honors graduate from Pacifica High School, science teacher. The one thing I want to ask you, which sort of dovetails with the water report we just had, is when you reduce your setback, we're losing permeable land where water could percolate down into the groundwater. So we're going from, you said 20 feet to 9 feet. So we're losing 11 feet, but over what length?
So the city engineer, they have reviewed this project specifically for the water runoff, and they've done a preliminary water quality management plan, and the city engineering staff has been okay with what they're proposing.
Well, but we're over what length of, we're losing 11 feet, so the 11 feet is.
So they
is
looked
a
at the entire site, over the entire site with the changes to the landscaping. The city engineer
So can you
has
tell me
reviewed
how
it.
much length, it probably curves around, but if we're losing 11 feet by approximately what length?
I don't have that number with me.
Well, can I ask you this
Nick,
then?
You're supposed to address
Oh,
your
I'm sorry.
comments to council, and
Oh,
then we
not
can
to
address
them.
staff
Oh,
as
okay.
necessary. So if you want to just.
Okay, thank you,
address your
Mayor. I
comments
wasn't
already.
sure
Thank
how
you.
that works.
Yeah, thank
Okay,
you.
thank you very much. Okay, so Mayor and council members, the only thing I would add to this, and I'm just looking at it from a layman's point of view, but with the background I have in water resources, I would just simply add that if you can request or require the builder to have some sort of water retention of gray water, so when we, or runoff, so capturing it into cisterns, and then have it go into the limited landscape areas over time so that we can increase our groundwater recharge and provide for water conservation. So yes, they've approved it as is, but I'm just throwing it out as an idea or suggestion. If you could please request the landlord, if not making it mandatory, ask them if they could consider installing cistern collection systems where the runoff from the roofs will go into the cisterns and then be discharged later into the limited landscaping. Thank you.
Thank you. I have a speaker card for Bon Huang.
Good evening, Mayor Steve Jong and Vice Mayor Phak Bui and the rest of council member and the city staff. My name is Bon Huang. I'm at 10907 Gilbert Street, City of Anaheim, California 92804. I representing a team of include the developer, the architect and engineer that we have putting the plans together for the last year and a half. Working with the city staff, including planning department, building, city engineering, the water department, fire department, as well as the trash company, in terms of the overall site improvements. So the keys that we have worked with the planning department was reducing the Euclid front setback to 9.5 feet. Because what we tried to achieve was just increase the parking spaces for the public use and safety, as well as the maneuvering of the circulation of the site for fire department requirement, as well as the trash company requirement for the new recycling up-to-date code, as well as we have our engineer have worked with the city engineer in terms of addressing the water runoff, because we're reducing the front setback on the Euclid, but the overall we still maintain enough landscaping on site that required by the plan unit development. So overall, the landscaping still stay the same in terms of percentage. And in terms of our engineer, technical about the water runoff, they have worked with the city engineer, Public Works and the Water Department, and have preliminarily approved on the water quality management plans and how we use our treatment of the water runoff before we dump to the Euclid Street. So that already taken care of before we get to this point. So once again, so we put together the plans. It's been a while, and we feel like the whole plan is not only just improve the existing building, existing site improvement, but we improve the water, the energy saving, as well as with all the recycling that required by the trash recycling company. Thank you very much.
Anyone else wishing to speak on this particular item? Okay, seeing none, we will close the public hearing. Any further questions, comments, or a motion?
Just want to make a quick comment regarding the water runoff, because I was working with the group that designed the Quang Trung Emperor statue, so I'm very familiar with that front landscape along Euclid Street. Because that landscape, even though the original one is about 20 feet from the curb, but because it is very slope, have a very steep slope, so the water is running off that slope very quickly, and it get onto street. And in fact, when Bill worked with us on the Emperor statue, he did point that out. And with the new, even though the new setback is half of that, 9 feet, but because it is a lot more flat, so the water would be retained more than the 20 feet slope. And I think they have done went over to to that water management, and I heard Bill mention about the plan to retain and divert the water more effectively, because with the existing site, whenever it rains just a little bit, it will be flooding the parking lot quite quickly. And in addition to that, I think the owner is looking to invest a lot of money to not only build the other building, but they renovate the whole plaza to make it look nice, and it will be a welcomed revenue stream for our city. Also, the bronze statue. He mentioned that he's going to work with Jennifer Stewart to build to replace that. He donated that bronze statue to a museum in Boston, and he wants to build a new one that make it look better. And I think they're working with Jennifer, and probably they will commission her to sculpture the new one.
Would you like to make a motion?
Sure. I would like to make a motion to approve this item 4B. Is that right?
Yeah.
I'll second that.
Okay. Call to vote?
Motion received, 7 yes votes.
Okay, takes us on to commission committee matters. We just have to acknowledge a resignation received from Planning Commissioner Andrew Kanzler. Love Andrew to death, very creative mind. Sad to see him go. Wish he could have stayed and completed his term, but otherwise we would like to just accept his resignation. Do we have to take a formal action or?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I'll move that we accept his resignation.
I'm sorry, who was the second? Ready to go.
Sorry. I'm not loud enough.
Motion received, 7 yes votes.
Okay, takes us on to items for consideration. We have a handful. 6A.
This evening for item 6A, we have an adoption of a resolution authorizing an application be submitted for the County of Orange Families and Community Together FACT Grant. And Ms. Gabriela Oquedes Hernandez is here to provide the staff report.
Good evening, Mayor and members of City Council. Staff would like to request the City Council authorize staff to submit a grant application to the County of Orange Social Service Agency Family and Communities Together program for grant funds to assist in funding the Magnolia Park Family Resource Center. Since 1999, the city has been the lead agency for this grant that provides community with family preservation services. The majority of the funding for the center comes from a grant from the County of Orange Families and Communities Together FACT grant. The original grant was received in 1999 and was extended in 2003, 2005, 2010, and once again in 2014 as part of a competitive grant process. County-funded services included counseling, case management, information and referral, family support services, parent education, domestic violence prevention and treatment services, and teen leadership. In July 2019, the County of Orange Social Service Agency released a request for proposals for the FACT Grant Family Resource Center services once again. Staff is seeking authorization to submit this application. The city would continue to serve as a lead fiscal agency for this grant proposal. The funded partners include Interval House for domestic violence prevention and treatment services, Human Options for differential response, family stabilization, and counseling services, and Task for parent workshops and IEP clinics. The grant funding covers a 3-year period from July 1st, 2020 to June 30th, 2023. The grant funding available for each 1-year period is $437,500 for a total amount of $1,312,500 for a 3-year period, with an option to extend 2 1-year additional periods without a competitive bid process at the sole discretion of the county. As the lead agency, the city will be overseeing the program and fiscal operations of the $437,500. As part of the grant application, the city's general fund will provide in-kind contribution towards salaries for 2 full-time staff, an annual amount of $115,300 for the operation of the Magnolia Park Family Resource Center. These funds are already accounted for in this 2-year budget cycle. It is recommended that the City Council adopt the attached resolution authorizing submission for application for grant funds for the Orange County Social Service Agency Families and Communities Together, and authorize the grant funding match for the amount of the $115,300 from the general fund for 2 full-time staff for salaries. This concludes staff's report. I'm available to answer any questions you may have.
Please go ahead.
First question is, could you explain a little bit more about what the Garden Grove Community Collaborative is and how they're maybe tied into the Magnolia Resource Center?
Yes. So Buena Clinton and Magnolia Park both had their own collaboratives, and back in September of 2018, we decided to merge and form the Garden Grove Community Collaborative. And makes up about 25 local nonprofits and community-based organizations and government agencies. And we meet once a month here at the CMC. And we look at strategizing on how we can partner together and leverage resources and promote services to the general community.
Okay, great. And then the 115,000 that's for 2 full-time staff that oversees Magnolia Resource Center, but then I'm assuming there's other people that work there part-time and so forth.
Correct. So the 115,000 covers a portion of their salary. So some is covered by the grant, but the grant cannot support their entire salary. So there's several other staff that their full salary is picked up by the grant.
Understood. Okay, thank you.
No questions, but a comment, and I would like to make the motion. So just want to, obviously it's a grant-funded project, so I have to do my shout-out for the grants. Prior to being a member of this council, years past is actually where I first met Gabby, was sitting on the 2 different collaboratives for Magnolia Resource and for Buena Clinton. So I've worked with the Resource Center. I know all the groups that go there and all the great work that they do for our youth and for our families. Fact funding has been declining, and so it's really hard for us to get that. As mentioned, I asked the question, Buena Clinton no longer receives this. They get funding sources to the general fund and other resources, but it's really important that we continue to get these grants and make use of our FRCs to ensure that there's supportive and social resources available to our families and to our Garden Grove youth. So I just want to commend staff for working really hard in applying for those grants. It's extremely competitive. Every year, cities are losing their grants, so hopefully, fingers crossed, we continue to receive this one. And I would like to motion to approve.
Call the vote.
Thank you. Thank you.
Motion received, 7 yes votes.
6B.
For item 6B, we have an introduction and first reading of an ordinance amending and updating the city's regulation governing the use of burglary and panic robbery alarm systems, entitled An Ordinance of the City Council of the City of Garden Grove, amending Chapter 8.60 of Title 8 of the Garden Grove Municipal Code relating to alarm systems. And we have Chief DeRay here to provide the staff report.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, the Garden Grove Police Department is asking City Council to consider introduction and first reading of an ordinance amending and updating the city's regulations governing the use of burglary and panic/robbery alarm systems. The City of Garden Grove adopted Municipal Code Section 8.60 in 1983, establishing codes that govern the use of alarm systems within the city. The Municipal Code section has remained relatively unchanged since that time. The proposed changes to the alarm ordinance will reduce false alarm responses and better align practices to industry standards. Changes to the ordinance would include additional verification of burglary alarm activations, requiring alarm companies to make 2 phone calls to responsible parties before a police response is requested. In 2018, 94% of alarm calls were false alarms. After the city of Anaheim implemented this process in 2012, they saw a 36% reduction in false alarm dispatches. Penalties for non-permitted systems. Alarm system users who failed to obtain a permit would be charged for any false alarm from their system and would not be afforded the same courtesy as permitted users, which is 2 false alarms at no charge. The addition of alarm user awareness class. This class would be available to all alarm system subscribers. This will educate the user on false and excessive alarm activations. Any user who successfully completes this class will receive a certificate they can use as payment for 1 false alarm activation if used within a year of issuance. And the issuance of administrative citations. These citations will be issued for systems that suffer from excessive alarm activations or for each activation for which a current and valid permit has not been issued or maintained. There is no financial impact to the general fund for this action, and it is recommended that the City Council introduce and conduct first reading of the ordinance amending and updating the city's regulations governing the use of burglary and panic robbery alarm systems. This is the end of the report, and staff is available for any questions.
Any questions?
I got a couple.
Please.
So, this alarm class, who's going to be putting that on?
It's not going to be me. I don't have that answer. It's probably going to be our alarm coordinator that will handle that, so it'll be internal, and then they'll receive the certificate from there.
And then, I just want to verify the fees that, for the actual alarm permits, are we raising those in any way, or are they staying the same?
We are not raising any permit fees at this time whatsoever.
And, you know, and I think this is great. I'm in support of this. My biggest issue is with the 2 alarms, you know, and I just kind of see, you know, you get a lot of elderly people who sometimes aren't tech savvy, and they don't know how to turn the alarm off fast enough, and they get, you know, and I'd hate to see them getting penalized, but I guess if they do, they can go to this alarm class, right, for a freebie, in addition to the 2.
It's computer? Okay. So real quick, it is computer-based training, so who you were asking was putting the training on, so it's computer-based. In regards to that, we have leeway in that. So, for example, sometimes we have alarm activations that are just constantly going off, and sometimes it's mechanical. So if they can at least show proof or something that it's mechanical, we'll waive those fees. So in that case, you know, we have the authority to waive that. And yes, the training would be absolutely outstanding for them.
They do the training retroactively, so they get their 3rd violation, so they're getting hit with the payment. Can they do the class after they get that violation so they can get the freebie, or is that, they have to do it beforehand?
I believe that they can do the training at any time right there and use it for one of those activations. So it would just depend. I mean, if we're going to have, usually we have some business have multiple, and it's going to increase every time. They're not going to be waiving a $200 fee. It's going to be a $50 fee that they would waive.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I would like to point out that prior to police showing up, this is going to activate it so that the company has to make 2 attempted phone calls. So prior to the elderly person panicking and then getting slapped with a fine, people are going to try and reach out to this individual multiple times prior to that occurring, correct?
That's correct, yes.
And then you see that we use City of Anaheim as an example, and they've decreased their false alarm dispatches by 36%. Did we have a conversation with Anaheim to see how they've handled cases that may be an elderly person who didn't punch in their code fast enough or just doesn't know how to work their alarm system, if they had any leniency with how they approached finding the said individual?
We did not reach out to Anaheim in regards to that. I know our police department has that leeway, so we would express that leeway for the elderly people that are having issues with that.
Please call the vote.
Motion received, 7 yes votes.
All right, several more items. 6C.
6C, we have the authorization of the issuance of a purchase order to Wondries Fleet Group for the purchase of 9 police vehicles. And Mr. Murray is here to provide the staff report.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Tonight, City Council is being asked to approve the purchase of 9 new police vehicles from Wondries Fleet Group for almost $337,000. Efforts to obtain a local bidder failed, and staff is recommending using existing Los Angeles County contract that used a competitive bidding process, and that contract is with Wondries Fleet Group, and they are the lowest responsible bidder, and the price includes taxes and destination charges. This concludes staff's report.
Questions or comments or a motion?
I got one question.
Go for it.
What kind of vehicles are these?
They're going to be the new Explorers, or what do they call them? The police SUVs.
Sure. And unfortunately, we don't have a Ford dealership at Garden Grove, right? So.
Which is why our search failed.
Right.
Call the vote.
Motion received, 7 yes votes.
6D.
For 6D, we have an award, a contract to Siemens Mobility, Inc. to provide professional services for project number 7284, conversion of all city-owned streetlights and safety lights from high-pressure sodium to light-emitting diode, and to authorize carryover fiscal year 2018-19 funds for capital project expenditures. And we have Mr. Murray here to provide the staff report.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, Night City Council is being asked to award a contract to Siemens Mobility Incorporated for the conversion of all city-owned streetlights to LEDs. There are almost 700 city streetlights, or they're city-owned, I should say, and they are identified as having a steel davit pole as opposed to the Marble-Lite, which more looks like more concrete. So if you see a steel one, it's ours. And most of those poles are right here in the Civic Center area. On November 2016, the City Council authorized Southern California Edison to convert their streetlights, their own streetlights, the Marble-Lite poles, to LEDs. And that resulted in a rebate of almost $756,000. In addition to that, in February of this year, Council authorized staff to proceed with this LED conversion project using the rebate funding. Unfortunately, this project will extend into next fiscal year, and Council will need to authorize the carryover of those funds. Staff received proposals from 3 consultant firms to provide the LED conversion. These firms were rated based on their qualifications and their proposals, and that's shown in your staff report. There's a little chart there with all of their scores. And as you can see, Siemens Mobility Incorporated was ranked the highest. Staff then negotiated a contract price of almost $456,000 for the work. Should Council decide to award the contract tonight, Siemens can begin the design work in September and will begin construction as soon as the weather is favorable. Staff is definitely anticipating the work to be completed before next summer. I'd also, as a side note, this is not the Siemens, this is a different Siemens subsidiary as opposed to the one that's at City Hall. Just a side note there. Also, this project was included in this year's capital improvement plan and will be paid for with the Southern California Edison rebate funds. This will exhaust the remainder of the funds. You may recall in February of this last year, we authorized the remainder of those funds to be used on the storm drain project over by Woodbury. And that project's almost complete. Actually, I think it is complete. This concludes staff's report, and I'm available to answer any of your questions.
Any questions? Go ahead, John.
Question, Siemens has different, subsidiaries. Is this the same group that does our traffic signals, or is it a different Siemens?
It's a different one.
Different one, oh, okay. And does this group just do the consulting, or do they actually do the big company?
They got to do the design.
So they're going to contract out the labor?
I believe that's all going to be done with them.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Oh, make that a motion?
I'll second it.
Call the vote.
Oh, we'd have more questions.
Motion received, 7 yes votes.
6.
For item 6E, we have an adoption of a resolution establishing a pension funding policy. And Ms. Song is here to provide the staff report.
Madam Clerk, could you put up the presentation, please? Thank you. Good evening, Mayor, council members. The item before you is a resolution to adopt the City of Garden Grove pension funding policy. During the adoption of fiscal year 2019 through 21 biannual budget, we were asked to develop a policy to effectively address the city's unfunded pension liability for the purpose of strengthening the city's financial health. Pension cost occupies a significant portion of the city's operating budget. For the current year, $22 million was budgeted for pension contribution in the general fund, which is almost a quarter of the total personnel budget in the general fund. Of the total pension cost, close to 70% is attributable to unfunded pension liability. This makes the paying down the pension liability one of the most effective strategies to control future costs and achieve fiscal sustainability. The proposed policy is developed based on best practices published by the Government Finance Officers Association. Some of the highlights are listed on the slide here. First of all, the policy commits the city to pay down unfunded liability and stabilize future contribution rates. In addition, continue to contribute 100% of actuarial determined contribution amount. The city has been doing this in the past and will continue to do this. When making hiring decisions, take full pension costs into consideration, including both the normal cost, which is the annual amount of providing retirement benefits to the active employees for upcoming fiscal year, and the unfunded liability for the plan as a whole. Last but not least, prohibit pension benefit increases until the plans are fully funded. To implement this policy, we analyzed 6 options outlined by the League of California Cities in its 2018 Retirement System Sustainability Study. First option requires the city to contribute funds in addition to our annual required contribution directly to CalPERS. The advantage of this option is that our liability gets to be reduced by the amount contributed, provided that no other assumptions are going to be changed by CalPERS. One of the disadvantages for this option is the lack of asset diversification, since the additional contribution will be placed in our existing accounts and subject to the same investment options provided by CalPERS. The other disadvantage is the inability to smooth out future contribution increases, as the funds cannot be applied towards an annual required contribution. Second option is to consider local ballot measures for new revenue sources. Our voters approved the passage of Measure O in November 2018. Option 3 is establish a pension rate stabilization program through Internal Revenue Code Section 115 trust account. This is the preferred option for 2 primary reasons. First, from investment perspective, funds are not invested with CalPERS, which allows for diversification and does help reduce volatility and provides protection on our assets. From the budget perspective, the rate stabilization program provides flexibility on the use of funds. Even though all funds invested in the Section 115 trust are restricted for pension payments, it can be used to pay the annual required contribution. The city has full control over the assets. This is especially important if contribution rates significantly increases or if the city has cash flow needs to finance a special project. In those cases, funds can be withdrawn from the trust to cover that period's annual contribution. The fourth option is to outsource certain services or reduce the service level. The city has contracted certain services in the past and reduced some of the service levels to battle structural deficit in the past years. However, continuing on this path is not desired, as it is important for us to maintain and enhance service levels for our community. Option 5 requires employee to contribute towards employer share of pension cost. The city has negotiated with certain labor groups to increase employee contribution in the past years. The last option provided by the League is to issue a general obligation bond to finance the funds to pay down pension liability. This is not recommended, as it only delays and compounds the financial impact of this obligation. To recap, option 3, setting a Section 115 pension trust, is the most practical and desirable approach. The city started to prepay the annual unfunded accrued liability effective this current fiscal year. By prepaying, we will realize cash flow savings of over $670,000 as allowed by CalPERS. Staff is also recommending investing this amount into the 115 trust account and continue this practice in the future years. The city has been working diligently towards promoting financial sustainability and fiscal prudence. The proposed pension funding policy is another step towards building the foundation of the city's fiscal health. We are asking the City Council to adopt the resolution establishing the pension funding policy, authorize the city manager or his designee to execute any necessary documents to implement the policy through a Section 115 trust, and approve investing the $670,000 cash flow savings from prepaying unfunded accrued liability into the 115 trust. This concludes staff's report, and I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Please, go ahead, George.
Yep. I just want to reiterate, excuse my, how huge this is. for Garden Grove, I think we're one of a handful of California cities that are actually making inroads to pay down our unfunded pension liability. And I think this is a great step in that direction. I think we're going to have a future assessment as to how much we're going to get into this account going to do this. But it's a great first step, and kudos.
Thank you.
Not really a question, but a statement. I think it's a great move that we're paying down that liability for the city. Now, we're not changing CalPERS in any way necessarily on the actuary amounts and all that, but we're doing our due diligence to put the money away to pay down that unfunded liability. Just a quick note, for instance, Orange County, the Fire Authority, our fire department is going there. It's a different pension program.
Right.
We would still have unfunded liability over there, but the authority has been paying down their debt for years. By the end of next year, they'll be 85% funded. By 2027, they'll be 100% funded if the numbers stay. But they're making a conscious effort to pay down, and they're saving tremendous amount of money by paying up front. So I just want to make that known to the public out there. Thank you.
I would like to commend the staff on this very important baby step. We've been asking for the previous finance chief to consider this, and I'm really glad that we're now moving toward to that direction. But I want to caution that the issue of pension liability is huge. Don't expect that this have overturned that, and so I hoped with your guidance and expertise that we will continue to find a way to control the liability there. And thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, if I could just chime in very briefly and to reiterate some of Councilman Bowie's points. I want to thank Ms. Song and her staff for putting this policy together so quickly. It's it's not a total solve, but it's a good first step for us to making some positive steps forward. And just to reiterate for you, but mainly for the public as well, is that the second part of this, and Patricia and her staff got right on this, this is really good that we have this policy in place. In November, we'll be coming back to you as promised with a reserve fund policy for the city as well. So those two items together will give us a base and a roadmap going forward to, hopefully get us on the right track for where we want to go. So thanks also from me to her staff.
I'll move approval.
Please call the vote.
Motion received, 7 yes votes.
All right, that takes us on to matters. We do have one listed matter, item 7A.
For item 7A this evening, we have update on the annual City Council budget appropriation practices of neighboring cities in Orange County with district elections and potential district budget allocations within the city's adopted budget as requested by the City Council. And Sean Park is here to provide a staff report.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor, members of the City Council. At the July 9th, 2019 City Council meeting, the Garden Grove City Council discussed the idea of implementing an annual City Council budget appropriation whereby each council member, including the mayor, could be allotted a set amount of dollars to utilize within their respective districts or citywide. Along these lines, the City Council directed staff to survey cities in Orange County to determine if any cities with districts provide each of their City Council members with an annual budget appropriation. For those district cities with budget appropriations, the City Council requested that staff research the annual appropriated dollar amount, past and present uses of the funds, oversight practices, and funding sources. City staff surveyed each of the 34 incorporated cities in Orange County and ultimately learned that 15 of the 34 cities have districts. Of those 15 cities, only 3 currently provide each of their City Council members with some sort of set annual budget appropriation for use in the community. Santa Ana, Seal Beach, and Newport Beach each appropriate annual budgets for their City Council members ranging from $6,000 to $20,000. The remaining 12 cities with districts either did not have a set annual budget appropriation for each council member, or were still in the process of transitioning to district elections. In fact, 6 of the 15 district cities in Orange County have only partially transitioned to district elections, with transitions expected to be complete by the 2020 and 2022 November elections. Additionally, staff's survey of the Orange County cities showed that most cities, whether district cities or not, already have an established council account or operations budget to support city council administrative staff, travel and training expenses, as well as other reoccurring council costs. For example, the city of Anaheim currently allocates approximately $72,000 annually for each of its council members to use solely for hiring administrative labor support and aides. Like Garden Grove, other cities, including Costa Mesa and Dana Point, also have sponsorship and discretionary funds that are shared by the entire city council. However, only Santa Ana, Seal Beach, and Newport Beach currently have individual budget appropriations for each city council member to use on an annual basis. The City of Santa Ana's special event sponsorship program provides the mayor and the city council the opportunity to allocate sponsorship funding up to $10,000 per fiscal year for special events conducted by qualified nonprofit organizations or city-recognized neighborhood associations. City council members may utilize these general fund monies anywhere in the city, not just in their respective districts, and with oversight from the city manager's office. In the past, council members have used these funds to sponsor student fashion shows, assist with high school football fundraisers, support Planned Parenthood marches, and sponsor grand opening ceremonies for nonprofit organizations. Any unexpended dollars are not carried over into the next fiscal year budget, and it's important to note that the City of Santa Ana also has a separate $14,000 allocation annually for community events and neighborhood projects. Similarly, the City of Seal Beach provides each of the city council members and the mayor with an annual budget of $20,000. City council members may utilize these general fund monies anywhere in the city and not just in their respective districts, and with oversight from the city manager's office. Council members have used these funds to pay for Main Street aesthetic improvements, plant trees, donate to general care centers, for kitchen upgrades, and improve park equipment. Unlike Santa Ana, however, Seal Beach allows for unexpended dollars to be carried over into the next fiscal year budget, so long as it is being utilized for an ongoing project or purpose. The City of Newport Beach also has a district discretionary grant account, which allows the city council to direct revenue towards worthy projects or programs within the city that are deemed beneficial to the residents' quality of life. The city council sets the annual allocation amount for this discretionary grant account during the budget process, and all city council members, including the mayor, receive the same budget allocation. Expenses must have an identifiable public benefit and must align with the city council's priority of focusing on local groups within Newport Beach, regional groups in Orange County, and more broadly, other groups in California that also benefit its residents. In the past, council members have used these funds to sponsor the annual Balboa Island Improvement Association Parade, support the Bayside Village Association Parade, and donate to the Boys and Girls Club. Any unencumbered funds are deposited in the general fund reserve account, and expenditures are reported to the city council annually. Here at the City of Garden Grove, we maintain a city council contingency account, which contains $41,365, and this can be used at the city council's discretion for projects or needs that may come up during the year and are not separately budgeted. These funds can potentially be allocated proportionally for use by the council members within each district, as well as by the mayor citywide. At this time, there is no additional financial impact should the city council wish to implement district budget allocations within the city's council contingency account. And should an allocation of the city council contingency account be considered, it would equate to approximately $5,000 for each council member, including the mayor. The remaining $6,365 in the account would still be available for use at the council's discretion, and it is recommended that all purchasing policies and practices currently in place be adhered to, and that the expenditures be administered through the city manager's office. Periodic reporting would be shared through the city manager's weekly memo to the city council, and with that, it is recommended that the city council consider this report and provide direction to staff. That concludes this report.
Thank you. So it's up to us. Do we maybe want to start with George, who brought this forward?
Yeah, sure. I just, I see some of the frustrations when you get elected onto the city council. You try to get things done rapidly. And, you know, every time you want to do something, you got to have this, go through this hoop, jump through that hoop, and we got to bring it to council now and get a full vote to spend $200 on whatever, or this or that. You know, other cities, it was brought to my attention, allow, you know, we are elected individually from our districts now. And, you know, as so, you are held accountable by your district. And so I think it's only appropriate that we be allotted a small amount. You know, again, we're talking less than, of the 6 cities who are already in districts, 3 of them already have this. The other ones are probably going to be transitioning soon, and we would be the lowest with $5,000 of all the cities that have already got it. There's a perception, it might be valid, it might not be, arguable perception, that the Civic Center area and Harbor Boulevard get all the attention from this dais. And I don't necessarily agree with that, but there is that perception, and having these funds available that we can bring to our districts to do things will kind of help eliminate some of that perception. I think, you know, we're held accountable again, as staff report said, would have to articulate this at the council meeting, what we're spending our money on, and it would be published in the manager memo, so it's transparent for the public. And so I personally think it's a good idea. So with that,
Question for Sean. Can you elaborate a little bit on how Anaheim's works? You said $72,000 or something like that per
Yes,
district?
so the city of Anaheim doesn't actually have a separate allocation like we're discussing here. They do, however, provide $72,000 approximately to their council members, each getting that allocation to hire administrative aides to help them with their daily operations.
So that's for labor and aides?
It's specifically for labor, correct.
Okay. Yeah, I'm in favor of this only because it's a small amount and we could do stuff within our district, community events, clean up, you know, maybe providing a lunch if you get the community out to help clean up. I've got a lot of problems in District 2 on the border, Anaheim, Garden Grove, Catella, from Euclid all the way down to Magnolia, or even down to Dale. There's a lot of problems there on the border. And if the community wants to get out and help, but you know, if I could spend a few dollars on a barbecue or something to give the volunteers lunch, you know, that's something I could do without coming to full council, and things like that, you know, community events. It's not for the council member, it's for the district, it goes to the community, and like George says, it's small amounts, $200, maybe a couple $100 at a time, and so I'm in favor of it.
So I'll jump in because I think I've expressed the most hesitation with this item. I think this report and the comments by council colleagues are a little bit misleading as to how we can use this money and for what. So I think that there needs to be a little bit more due diligence on staff's end as far as informing council how this money can be used while following a variety of rules. For instance, I have an issue with the council member having a flyer with only their name on it for a specific event because it can also be interpreted as a campaign motivated use. Number 2, for instance, the city of St. Anna has a comprehensive policy that requires for organizations to apply for the said funding, and then council members have the option to give money to those events. And I think that I would be more okay with something like that. We have plenty of issues where nonprofit organizations come and ask us to waive fees for using our rental facilities, and we have asked them to pay the 5%, and sometimes they can't and we waive it, or however that goes. I could see potential that the fund be used by council members to then mitigate that cost. Or if a neighborhood association or another nonprofit organization wants to have a cleanup, then they can apply for X amount of dollars. We can all choose to contribute to that, and that could be used for them to purchase food for volunteers, or if that's allowable, whatever the case may be. I have qualms with us being able to decide where that money goes and how it can be used, because not all of us are aware of the rules, and until we either get a specialized training to fully understand that, I don't trust our judgment. And I think it would be better to have a more monitored, checked and balanced sort of process for this type of use of our funds. I'm also concerned that our current council budget isn't technically earmarked, but there are reoccurring expenses on an annual basis that we use our pot of money for, whether it be studies that we need ask for parking or for whatever, surveys, consultants, things like that. And so that money has always been available for those types of things, and to require it for something else then takes away that use. So I have a series of concerns.
If I may just briefly, I think some of the key points that Councilwoman Nguyen mentioned are it's guidelines and checks and balances. And although I appreciate the due diligence and the work put into the staff report, I don't feel like those are in there in enough detail for me to feel comfortable with it as written. So I would need to see more of that. And so with that, it's not that I'm completely against this, but I also have to be mindful of we are going into 2020, which will be an election year. And so for some of us that are potentially running again, and the things that maybe we choose to use that money on and how it's being used in the community and so forth, I think that could get dicey at times. And I want to make sure that we're always above board and our motives are pure and are being used for the right reasons in our district and in the city. So I would need the staff report tweaked a little bit. I would need a little more information, I think, before I could move forward with the vote this evening.
I also want to jump in on that as well. I agree with Councilmember Nguyen and Councilmember Koffenstein. We need to have a very strict guideline of what needs to be done. And just put it this way, as a SOP. Because we can be biased sometimes, and without knowing it. So definitely we need some structure, something written in a hard copy to make sure that we abide to it. With that, when we come to that, I will support it. But otherwise, right now, it's very vague of what we're going to do with the fund.
I'll concur with several of the comments that are made. Is that I feel a little uncomfortable with this as written, just because it doesn't have enough sort of descriptive to it in terms of what was described as checks and balances and whatnot. So there's a little too much open discretion. There's also a question of, does this roll over every year? Does it expire? Does it carry? Does it accumulate? Does it, those sort of things need to be answered, I think, and which opens up a whole nother can of worms if it does accumulate, or if it does expire, then it compels people to make decisions to spend unnecessarily. Perhaps if it accumulates, then it creates a budgeting issue for finance to accumulate funds and those sort of things. So I think all those things need to be contemplated. My gut feel is that even in the absence of this, that if you had a good idea to do something within your district, like an art project or whatnot, with a little bit of soapboxing and just sort of doing what we do, you could probably get it funded, and you could probably get it done if it makes sense. But it would involve sort of selling it to the rest of the council members. I think there's something that's sort of healthy about going through a formal process where any one of us can't just do whatever we want on our own, or, who knows, I might go paint all the bus benches green or something.
Oh. Down that road.
So I think it needs some more thought. I don't know that it's, I say that jokingly, just say I don't know if it's necessary really to have this or not. I certainly want to welcome, kind of a discussion about how we could get there to something that could be supportable, but off the top, I think this is it's too loose and it's not clearly defined. And
my motion would be then that we would send this back to staff, have them make contact with everybody on this dais, get their input, and then draft something that we can bring forward in the future.
I second it, but I want to make a comment. I think the ideas, which is based on good faith and want to serve the constituent in the district, and in a way that it doesn't hinder the councilman of that district to the capability to do so quickly to serve the resident in the district. And so I think the need for a better guidelines is also always good. However, if we make it too strict, like, we want to, limit this, we want to limit it, we limit that, then suddenly it defeating the original intent to allow the city council member to come up with idea or things to serve the constituent. And the other thing to that would be, remember that we are in a democracy system. If one council member misuse the fund, and which the district, the constituent in that district, as well as other council members who have visibility into how that money is being spent in the city memo or in other that we can that will be known immediately to the public. That person will have to answer to them when the vote comes. For example, if someone misuse it just for the intention to cheat the system and get his flyer out, remember this is only $5,000. One mailer in one district, it burned that very quickly. So I don't think the council member will attempt to cheat the system that way. And if anyone ever caught doing that, the price for that would be very, very high. So I think we need to make it absolutely, there need to be a guideline, better guideline, but don't make it too strict, where it defeating the purpose of creating this fund for the council members.
And Mr. Mayor and members of council, if I could just add one other thing. The task that I had asked Mr. Park to do was to go back and see what other neighboring cities were doing and to look at how some of the district allocations might work. So just in defense of his report, I didn't ask him to prepare a comprehensive policy on what to develop because we frankly didn't know where council wanted to go with this. So if it's the wishes of council, we'll go back and then we'll start to put a comprehensive policy together for all of you to consider and bring that back at the appropriate time.
Sure. And I like Councilman Tuhan, Councilman Kim's ideas on that. I think it's good to have a structure in place, and I also agree with Councilman Bowie, but it can't be so unencumbering that we can't use it, so but one thing I would like to add to that is that not only is it reported in the memo, but it also it shall be reported by that member at the next council meeting.
Like under matters or something?
Yeah, under matters, saying, hey, I just spent $600 on this and out of my district funds or something like that. Make that a mandatory thing, as that way it's on TV, you're being transparent to the community, the public, the whole bit.
I'd like to go a step further and ask that it be posted on the website. Other cities post how that discretionary fund is being used on their website, and I would like for us to do the same if we move forward with this idea.
Transparency.
Yeah, exactly. So we got a motion and a second, so I guess
All the vote.
Motion received, 7 yes votes.
Thank you. Any other matters from council members?
Yes, I just would like to update the publics about some of the concern about public safety, given some of the high-profile activity in the last couple of weeks. But before I get into that, I would like to commend our police departments for doing a really, really good jobs in two things. Number one is being very transparent, very open about any major crimes, homicide in our city. Our department have always notified everyone on our website, as well as on the Garden Grove social medias, so that the public know exactly, where the major crime have been occurred in our city. I don't see that happen in other nearby city. And so the notion is, it have a good thing because then the public is being immediately notified about it. But then it also creates a sense that maybe crime in our city is rising above the level of nearby city. It's not true. It's happened everywhere. And we know that crime generally in Central Orange County have been climbing very, very fast in the last few years, and it approaching 40% increase over the last years. What is different is our police department, our city, have taken a very proactive, very transparent approach, informing the public, informing the medias about it, and so we hear about the bad news more than from other cities. The second thing that I see that we have done, our police department have done a very, very good job is take the issue, the crime where that involve the 4 people that doing drugs dealership. Within a few days, 2 or 3 days, our police department have tracked down those 3 criminals and arrest them in Las Vegas for killing one of the other drugs dealer in near Westminster Avenue and Bouchard. And then recently, with a domestic violence, nothing related to crime, but it just happened to be, a son killed his mother. Within days, our police were able to crack down and arrest that person. And lastly, the one that everyone was talking about, that is the we believe it is a hate crime. Someone just go out and randomly rob and kill, murder other people just randomly. And if it is not for our police officer and undercover police officer being able to follow and identify that person quickly, if the and arrest him in Santa Ana, if we just miss that last arrest, last murder, like a couple minutes, he would have stolen the gun and would kill more people because he seemed to be in a killing spree. So I think overall our police have been doing very, very good, consider the situation. But a week before that, I talked to our mayor and city manager and our chief, and want to have a meeting to talk about public safety. And today the mayor, Steve Jones, I, and Chief Dare and our manager have met, and the chief have given us a very detailed plan, proactive plan to combat this issue. And why I cannot delve into that in detail, because it got to be intuitive so that it can work. I would like to update the public that the chief is on top of it. He is putting together a very comprehensive plan, and hopefully we'll be able to turn this thing around very quickly.
Mayor?
Thank you. George, go ahead.
Yeah, a couple of issues. Again, getting back to the unfortunate events that occurred last week. I want to reiterate at what the chief said earlier on in the meeting. Prior to this and now, we were either at a level plateau or we were dropping in most reportable crime. So I just want that to be clear. We were dropping. Now, granted, we were at the same level plateau on the homicides, and now obviously we're up. But we were dropping, not increasing. One of the tragic things about that event is that it was completely preventable. There was no reason for it to happen. The only reason it did happen was because of AB 109. I think the newsprint media got it mixed up and didn't realize it was not the early release thing, because they kept saying, oh, he wasn't released early. It was about the flash incarceration applications that we're talking about. Previously to this, when a parolee was violated, they'd do a year, and now they do under 10 days. So just want to make that clear. That's all a provision of AB 109. It's not a partisan issue, because nobody wants their families murdered in the streets. Democrats, Republicans, Independents, Green Party, nobody wants that to happen. So it's completely nonpartisan. We need to talk to our state senators, our state assemblymen, and push them to repeal this terrible, terrible law that was enacted. The last thing, animal control. It was brought up from members of the public today. I've heard about it nonstop during the election process since I've been elected. And quite frankly, shame on me. I have not gone down there and made a surprise impromptu visit of that facility. I plan on remedying that. I'm not going to announce it. I'm just going to show up and look around for myself. And that's my bad. I haven't really done that yet, but I'm going to. But there's clearly issues going on here and at that facility. And I would like to get a meeting of the management of that location and the community folks that are kind of involved, and maybe come to a consensus, because I think there's a lot of things that can be done to make the community happy and to improve the situation for our animals that are in that facility that would probably be low cost, easy to come do. You know, things like getting the photographs up, stuff, just easy things that we could probably come to a consensus. I know their contract is coming up in 2 years, and unless there's some major changes, I will not be supporting renewing that contract. So I think it would be in the management's best interest of to sit down with not just us, but some of the key community leaders that involved in that, the animal, as she said herself, the animal wacko group or whatever. But I think we need to make that happen, and I'd be happy to facilitate that.
Of unconscionable thing that transpired, and my heart goes out to all the victims of that. Lastly, I want to thank my wife Sylvia for sticking with me for 33 years married. Next week we're celebrating 33 years. We were married in Garden Grove, and we've been together about 34 and a half. So thank you to my wife, because she's the one that kept it all together. And she lets me be able to do these types of things that I do out in the community and at work, the things I do in my day job. So thank you, honey.
Awesome. Anybody else?
In regards to the OCFA move, I think that there's quite a few of us, if you've lived in Garden Grove for any length of time, obviously there's a bit of nostalgia that you feel when you've had a department here in the city for as long as we have, and I commend them for all of their hard work and everything that they've done. But it's definitely with great hope and anticipation that I look forward to the 16th. And we obviously don't have to forget where we've come from, but I think it's good to embrace where we're headed, and I look forward to welcoming OCFA to Garden Grove. I also want to thank our Garden Grove Police Department for their leadership and hard work. They've been put through quite a bit here in the past week, and so I appreciate their attentiveness to our community and to our safety, and I want to thank them for that. I also have some information on the vector control front. We had our first mosquito samples test positive for West Nile virus as of this month. These mosquito samples were not found in the city of Garden Grove, but in the city of Orange, which is nearby. Cities like Huntington Beach, Buena Park, Tustin, and Cypress have also had birds test positive for West Nile virus. All those cities surround Garden Grove. So the time to dump and drain standing water, check your screens, and wear bug repellent is of paramount importance going forward. We still have a lot of humid, hot weather ahead, so please make sure that you take care of your house and your neighborhood. If you are having an overabundance of mosquitoes, there is a number to call with OC Vector, and they will come out and take a look at your house and see what more you could maybe do to protect yourself. The number is 714-971-2421, and they will definitely come out and help you in any way that you need. I also want to remind the public to please use the Coyote hotline. Just as we need outreach and education for vector control, we also need it in dealing with the coyote situation in Garden Grove. And I know there'll be more on that issue at a later date and time. We're all looking for solutions, and we want to mitigate this problem as best as possible. But in the meantime, collecting the data is extremely important, not only to know where they are in the city, but what they're doing, learning the behaviors, etc. So yes, it's okay to post on Facebook, but we need you to call the hotline, and we need you to give that information. That's even more important than just putting it on Facebook. And that number is 714-741-5286. That's it.
Can I ask you how much is a lot of mosquito? Like if I go out to the garden and water the plant or the lawn, and I got bit by about 10 when I was like half an hour there. Is that a lot?
That's a lot. Absolutely. Yeah, definitely. I mean, anytime you're being attacked and your legs are bit up, that's an abundance of mosquitoes in your yard. That usually means that there is some type of standing water somewhere. And don't forget, we have harder water in Garden Grove, so even that calcium deposit that builds on your terracotta pots, they can actually lay their eggs on that. So it's not just dumping and draining, it's scrubbing off that calcium deposit on the pots. It's looking at your kids' little backyard toys. It's looking in all sorts of areas. So it really adds up, but all of that helps to keeping that down. So it's not just your house, but it's your whole neighborhood and spreading that awareness to everybody.
Sure. And there are about 4 inside my home that keep biting me every night. And they fly so fast that I could not even slap them.
That's
What
the
do I
worst
do?
when you hear that little noise in your ear in the dark.
Must be sweet.
Okay, anybody else? City Manager Scott Stiles.
No comments, Mr. Mayor.
And happy birthday, Councilman.
Yeah, happy birthday, Councilmember Tu-Ha Nguyen, and I'd also like to say happy anniversary, Chief DeRay, I think on his 27-year anniversary, which was disrupted last week by a series of events that took him away from his lovely wife, Janine. So, and with
John
that,
O'Neill too.
yeah, and John
33
John
years.
as well, yeah. Yes, of course. Okay, with that, we stand adjourned. Thank you.